And welcome to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins.
And I'm John Merrill, and welcome to this week's episode. We're excited to have you join us today. Ken, tell us what's on the agenda this afternoon.
Well, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, my friend.
Well, we went through a lot of stuff since we've seen each other last. We've had Law Enforcement Week.
Absolutely.
Now, what did you do during that week? I bet it's a big week for you.
Well, it was a big week, as it usually is, and one of the things I was so excited to see is the outstanding work that was done in Calhoun County. There is not another county in the state that focuses more on Law Enforcement Week and does it any better than Calhoun County. And of course, Pastor C.O. Grinstead at Trinity Baptist Church is the chaplain for the Oxford Police Department, and one of the things that he always does a great job of is identifying people that need to come and speak to those law enforcement officers each and every day of the week, leading up to the grand finale on Friday, where they have an outstanding speaker. Of course, one year they didn't, but that was the year that I spoke.
You know who that was?
I just happen to remember
you know
it so well.
Was me. Oh, go ahead.
But I will tell you, I know that he had an associate justice of the Supreme Court, Will Sellers, came and spoke and did a tremendous job. I also know that one of the justices on the Court of Criminal Appeals, Richard Minor, who's from St. Clair County, came and spoke one day. And then I know the main speaker for the end of the week was Attorney General Steve Marshall, and he did his usual outstanding job.
Yeah, me and Bill Partridge put that program together on Friday, and it's really a task because I got to do all the stuff like get the tents and the sound and the thing like, and coordinate with the different people, music, whatever. But and you said General Marshall did a great business, by the way, and I think we had close to 400 policemen. I never seen a crowd like, and I don't know what causes that, because that's my our 7th or 8th year to do the law enforcement, and you've been up there sometime for that.
Yes, sir.
Day.
Well, as you know, I've been several times when I didn't even actually have the opportunity to speak, just to show my support and my appreciation for our law enforcement professionals, not only here in Calhoun County, but in Cleveland County and the surrounding counties, where they do such a good job of including them and inviting them to participate in such an outstanding event throughout the week.
Just something about that. You might, you don't know it, but I'll pass it on to you that when you might not get asked to speak a lot of times, because when you speak, there's nothing left on the bone. And I have had to follow you several times. Example, Eli Henderson's funeral.
Oh, yes.
Great Eli Henderson.
Yes, sir.
The guy, the last face you see when you open my show. Eli Henderson, we did his, what was that? What would you call it? His service.
A memorial service there at Welborn High School.
They must have been 50 people speaking. I was the last one.
Yes, sir.
You were the first one.
Yes, sir.
After you got through, I could have just stepped up there and said, "Enough said." And that would have covered the whole thing. And Eli would have loved it. But I didn't do it. But it was like, after you get through, there's nothing. Like, what can you say, Sam? I could have just said the same thing John said. But just kidding you. Doggone. But anyhow, we had Law Enforcement Week is a big thing. I can remember going down at the Oxford Civic Center, you down there for that little memorial they've had down there several times. They're just different things. I know where your heart is with law enforcement is the reason I'm talking about it.
Yes, sir.
And to know that, I think every week ought to be Law Enforcement Week, to be honest with you. But to see, I got to talk to some of the families that in the past year had lost a loved one. That's give them the coin and that kind of thing. I think a young lady, 24 years old, not this year, but a couple years back. She's from Mobile and had just lost her husband, and they had a young child, a little over a year, about 18 months old. She was so brave, putting on a brave front. And we've just been a few weeks since she'd buried her husband, but she was going forward, and I still stay in touch with her on Facebook. It's amazing and she has already went back into college. The people in the law enforcement community down there in Mobile, I don't know who they are or whatever, but they have helped her uh, after the fact. They don't just forget them.
Yes, sir.
And it's amazing to me how the blue line comes together in that situation. But I said the other day, I said, I hope I never have to come back up here. But every year we're adding, you name 10 names.
Yes, sir.
10 new law enforcement.
Well, you know, one of the things they do so well in Montgomery is they have a law enforcement memorial celebration. And as many of you may know, and some others may not be aware, the only monument that is actually on the grounds that's not dedicated to a particular individual there at the state capitol is dedicated to law enforcement professionals throughout the state of Alabama. And as you know, the statue that's there on the south entrance to the Capitol, right outside the Avenue of Flags, is the largest and the most pronounced monument that's on the Capitol grounds there in Montgomery, and that is justifiably so.
Wow, I did not know that, but it is, you know, we do need to remind our people that about the Law Enforcement Week, what it means. If you can participate in it, fine. If you can't, find some way to walk up to a law enforcement officer and they see you come, they know that a hug is being enticed, and don't be afraid to hug them. Enough of that. You never did that.
Well, I think one of the things that we cannot do before we leave this segment is talk about how important it is to celebrate it, as you said, all year round, not just during Law Enforcement Appreciation Week, because when we do that, it shows these officers how much they mean to us, because we know they put their lives on the line each and every day. We're very appreciative for you and for your service to each and every community throughout the state. When we return, we'll talk about other topics for today. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. I was here with John Merrill, and John, when we went to break, we was talking about law enforcement. Let's go to something. We try to keep the people out there up to date with, go into depth to some of the news events. One of the things that I was watching last night on Fox was this gas stove, all things gas, gas burners like your barbecue pits and things like that. But I'm thinking about, they're trying to do away with under the green movement, do away with gas stoves. Can you imagine what that does in a restaurant? Would you think about having a steak cooked on just a grill like you would an egg? No fire touching it. Can you imagine? See, the restaurants are in an uproar.
Well, they should be, and there's no way that they're going to be able to control that environment to the point where they can produce the quality of food in the time frame that they've got in order to satisfy the customer base. And it's another example of where people who are making those decisions and making those choices are uneducated and ill-informed about the issue, and yet they're trying to look down from their ivory towers and tell all the people in food service and in different fields around the nation what they should be doing in their particular area because they once read a book about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about, you know, the fire cooking the steak and grease dripping from the steak, and I can't handle food with a lot of grease in it, so I can't imagine a steak cooked otherwise if it wasn't over a fire. I just don't know how that'd be done. But these are things that's facing us, and the only way I can see is the people out there to just get with their congressman, their senator, to raise Cain, make sure that they get the message that we don't want any part of that. And the next subject I got is 10 times that.
Well, Ken, before we leave the gas stove issue, one of the things that's very important for us to remember is that these issues need to be driven by the market. They don't need to be directed by political interest or political philosophies. Whenever we see something like that occur, there's obviously a reason for that to happen. And usually it's because of the green. And it's about who is directing the green on that particular issue, who is benefiting financially from the positions that these individuals are holding. it's not because it's in your best interest. It's because it's in the best interest of some special interest somewhere that's actually promoting this and making sure that those people understand what their goal and their mission is, which is to promote that narrative and to try to streamline the change through a conversation on social media, through the paid media, and through other sources that generate conversation throughout the nation. That's not productive, and it's not the way that it should be. We need to let the market drive that conversation.
Yeah, and on top of that, last night, I know a lot of the viewers saw this piece. They zoomed in on these big fields, and then a dairy farm type with a lot of cattle, and interviewed a fellow. And John Kerry had just landed somewhere in that jet, and he had said, "We're doing away. We got to do away with a lot of the farming. Got to find a different way to farm that is not don't use fertilizer. We got to get rid of cattle, making emissions with feces. That I mean, it's just do away with their cattle, do away with their animals, do away with the crops, and because the crops are, some of them are left to, they get the product off of it, and it leaves a stalk. The stalk rots. That causes some kind of a harm to the green.
Yes, sir.
What we're going to do.
Well, look, once again, whenever we allow those people who are in the laboratory or those people who are in the classroom to be making those decisions, is putting all of us in a vulnerable state. I mean, we have enough natural gas and enough oil in the United States to last us as far as anybody can project, obviously long after you and I are both dead and gone. I think it's important that we make sure that we continue to let market forces drive this conversation in every issue that we're concerned about. As long as we're protecting the environment the way that we need to protect it, we can't go above and beyond to the point where it puts us in a vulnerable position. And whenever you start talking about electric energy and you start talking about the grids not being able to hold the charge that's necessary in order to perform at that level with electric cars, with electric houses that are exclusively electric, that is not going to be productive for the general public in any instance whatsoever.
I just showed Jeff and them a thing on my phone where a building blew up with about 40 cars and electric cars because of one battery. One car blew, and it blew up all the others. And but anyhow, I'm gonna switch gears. Let's go over to our favorite subject, the presidential race.
Yes, sir.
Heating up. Yesterday, DeSantis entered. Tim Scott is in. It's looking a little bit different than it was a few weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have, remember we had 17 up there with Trump?
That's right.
I think he's waiting on that many more before he wants to have about 18.
Yes, sir.
You're down in Mar-a-Lago to get to talk with him about that?
Yes, sir. And look, it's very clear what the president's position is. The president's position is he'll take all comers. And when the last man is standing, it'll be Donald John Trump. We're going to talk more about this when we return right after this break. Thanks for joining us again on Brainstorming America.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. We're talking with John Merrill. And John, when we went to the break, we were talking about the election out there that's going on, and especially the presidential part of it. What are your thoughts on where we are right now, where we're headed, and the percentages and all that kind of thing?
Well, obviously, as you introduced a few minutes ago, several candidates have expressed an interest in running. I think it should be noted that there's also one credible candidate that's going to challenge President Biden. That's Robert Kennedy Jr. I think he is very, very credible, and I think that the challenge could be significant for the president, especially if the president continues to exhibit the same kind of behavior that many people have seen and many people are concerned about, as far as him not appearing to have full control of his faculties as he continues to make statements or to interact with people in public settings. However, I think there's more interest at this point in the Republican primary that will begin in January of next year. Of course, we'll have the Iowa caucus, the New Hampshire primary, South Carolina primary. There's other states that have moved forward to try to have a stronger voice earlier in the process. And there have been a number of candidates that have already come out. There's a young Indian developer that's come out that's just in his latter 30s. There's former Governor Nikki Haley from South Carolina, Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, also Governor Ron DeSantis from Florida, and many other people that are currently thinking about it, including former Vice President Mike Pence and others. Of course, the one that's leading the pack is former President Donald John Trump. And obviously, he is the elephant in the room, because in order to be the man, or in Governor Haley's case, the woman, you got to beat the man. And the man is President Trump. So people have asked me, and I know they've asked a lot of other pundits politically, how do you feel about the presidential race and what do you think will actually happen? Well, one of the things that President Trump has confirmed is that regardless of how many people get in the race, he's going to have 30 to 35% of the vote across the board. And since you only have to win the presidential primaries or caucuses through a plurality vote, not through a majority vote, then he just has to get the most votes each and every time to get the most delegates that are available in each contest. And as that continues to happen, more and more of those candidates will actually fall to the wayside. I think one of the things that you'll see as the first presidential debate comes up in August is, and that will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I think there's another one in Minneapolis and St. Paul a little bit later. You're going to see some of that transition occur. Some of those people that think they're running for president now will realize they're not even running for re-election to their own seat because they don't have the resources in order to effectively campaign. Now, there's been mixed messages about whether or not President Trump will actually participate in those debates or not. But people already know President Trump. They know what he stands for. They know what he's going to do if he's elected to another term. So I think there's a lot of things that are going to continue to develop over the next few weeks and the next couple of months as we move forward to that first debate. But it's never going to be for lack of interest when this conversation continues.
You got that right. Well, the one name you don't hear a lot of, but Chris Christie, he only wants in there for one reason, to take on Trump.
That's right.
It has nothing to do about winning. He knows he can't win, but he wants to, he's got some daggers he wants to throw at him. There's another one at the end I saw this morning as I was leaving home. I saw a picture of a person who may get in the race, Liz Cheney. Can you imagine that conversation?
Well, certainly, I feel like that Governor Christie is good for 2% of the vote, and Congresswoman Cheney is good for almost 1% of the vote. So neither one of them are going to register any higher than you or I if we were in the race.
No, but they get to make those remarks.
That's true.
They're going to spend millions of dollars.
But one of the things that will happen if President Trump elects not to be present when they are throwing those daggers,
who they're going to talk to?
Then nobody really cares about that.
If Trump was here, this is what I would tell him. All right, let's go to another subject. Let's talk about the hottest item on everybody's breath, the debt ceiling that we're under right now. I know you know something about that, but maybe not at that level, but as Secretary of State, you had to balance your budget. You had to cut in places you need to cut that hadn't been cut before, ever in the history of Alabama, as I remember.
Yes, sir.
So somebody's going to have to move. We've been through this before in my lifetime, many times.
Yes, sir.
Too many times. And it's coming down to he won't give and he won't give, and it's down to where this progressive group and both sides is pushing each group to say we got to have this, got to have that. What do you thought?
Well, look, Ken, people are always asking about the debt ceiling and what actually needs to be done. Let me tell you the first thing that we need to do. We need to elect public officials who don't spend more money than they have when they're running for public office. How is someone legitimately going to convince you that they are for a balanced budget and they're for spending within their means if they don't even do it in their home life or they don't do it in their political campaigns? I never spent more money in any campaign I ran for than I actually had in the bank, because I did not want people to say what I just said. You can't borrow money and put yourself in debt to try to get elected to office on the platform that you're actually trying to balance the budget. The only way that we can have a balanced budget is by not spending more than we're taking in. And if you spend more money than you're taking in, obviously you're going to run a deficit. We don't need that. We've never needed it. We certainly don't need it today when we're at an all-time high on our deficit. And they have to raise the debt ceiling in order to continue to make the payments that are necessary for the bonds that we owe, that people have already purchased, the payroll that already exists at the federal level, and so many things that have got to receive that daily, weekly, and monthly attention in order to keep the nation running. But it's a sad, sad state of affairs where we are today.
For our audience, if you got a credit card, you got a $10,000 limit on it, and you run over it, you're getting yourself in trouble. That's what we do when we exceed our debt limit and that kind of thing. And it's just, I'm with you. Let's do some nickel and dime stuff here and figure out what we're doing. I don't know where we stand on time. Oh Lord, is that you?
Yes, sir.
So you can take him here, and I'm not going to say another word.
Well, we all know that that's not common, but what we are thankful for is to have another time to spend with you this week on Brainstorming America. We've got an action-packed program waiting for you next week as well. We hope that you'll continue to join us week in and week out. And if there are subjects and topics that you want us to talk about and things that you want us to present to you, please let us know here at the station so we can make sure that we give it the attention that it deserves. We appreciate you watching and being with us each and every week on Brainstorming America. We'll see you next time.